Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Braxcast. This is the 59th episode of the Braxcast, and we've got a good bit to talk about. But before we get into the absolute killer news, I want to talk about the Rippaverse Roundtable. Of course, the first Rippaverse Roundtable was this past Monday. It was a Blood Roof spoiler discussion with the Saska sisters who wrote Blood Roof #1 and Kanan #White along with Eric July. Absolutely fantastic conversation. Loved to see it. There was a lot of really interesting stuff that went down, and next week's episode is going to be on Yaira #2. That's going to be spoiler talk. So having this place where you've got members of the Rippaverse team going into spoilers and talking about the story and the lore of these comic books is really going to be interesting, especially as we're getting more and more books. This year is going to be absolutely massive for building the lore of the Rippaverse, and having the Rippaverse Roundtable launching this time, I think, is perfect because there's just going to be a platform for it to be discussed. But of course, another platform where that's discussed is Braxcast. There's Braxcast Live, and we had the 4th episode of Braxcast Live yesterday on Friday. I'm recording and posting this on Saturday, and that was a Twitter space. It was an absolutely amazing discussion I had with Rippa Guy, Amaze. Of course, there was all the people who were in the chat on YouTube, and you guys really stuck with me despite the technical difficulties. So the VOD for that is available on YouTube, and hopefully I'll be posting that wherever you do watch Braxcast. So if you do watch that, about 20 minutes in is where I'm able to work through the technical difficulties on that. But we still had a really fantastic discussion about the books themselves, about the business models and such. It was a really nice conversation. Absolutely loved doing it. And even in spite of the technical difficulties, you guys still showed up and had a really nice attitude and really were very kind to me, and everybody was on that space. So thank you so much, everybody. Of course, thank you for watching these episodes of the Braxcast as well. But like I said, I want to get into the really exciting news that the fan base has been freaking out over this past week, and that is Slash not only being a fan of the Rippaverse, but as I've got this tweet from Eric July printed out, and I'm showing it to you guys here, is that he's saying a leak just happened when someone said, "Hey, Slash is a fan of the Rippaverse. What do you think about this?" Basically, having his hat. Of course, you see Slash here wearing that classic Rippaverse logo hat. And Eric is saying a leak just happened, which means that in some capacity, Slash is working with the Rippaverse. Now, on what? We don't know. Hasn't said that, just saying that a leak has happened. Of course, this happened in Hollywood, so a lot of people are thinking that a movie is in the works. Now, an animated movie would be really interesting to see. And of course, the Rippaverse are working with Angel Studios. In light of Gabriel and Guardians #0 and that manga releasing alongside the animated series that's being published by Rippaverse. So there is a working relationship between the Rippaverse and Angel Studios. And of course, Angel Studios has made plenty of movies, and they keep making movies. They've got a lot of output in terms of film and television, and I'm sure they could fit the Rippaverse into that. And like I mentioned on the last episode of Braxcast Live, Eric did talk about Angel Studios possibly working with them, Angel Studios, on a Rippaverse movie with the success that Sound of Freedom had. If you know that Sound of Freedom, I think that came out in the summer of 2022, and that was a pretty big box office success. It's where a lot of people learned about Angel Studios. I believe that's where I learned about Angel Studios, is that movie with Jim Caviezel. So in light of that, there is this working relationship. Of course, it's already had fruits in Gabriel and the Guardians, that manga being published by Rippaverse, but could they be working on a movie? Could there be an animated Isom Ill-Advised movie, or an animated Rippaverse movie in general that doesn't focus on Isom? Maybe they're doing something with Yaira, maybe they're doing something with Norfolka, who knows? But I think the most likely thing is that since we are getting Norfolka glorious to death this year, with the interior artwork being done by Ronald Sanferrara, that started pencils and ink a couple of weeks ago, I think maybe even a month or two ago at this point in the game, we have the distinct possibility that Slash is working on a Norfolka album with the Rippaverse. So he could be doing the guitar work. He could be contributing the guitar tracks to a Norfolka album. And of course, with Slash being the lead guitarist of Guns N' Roses, an absolute pop culture icon in general and a legend in the rock scene, having his name and his work attached to a Norfolka album would be absolutely amazing. And I think that's the most likely thing. I think that would be the lowest budget thing for them, definitely in comparison to a movie. To have an album that releases alongside the Norfolka comic book would be a really cool thing to see, especially since that's a limited series and that's one that the fans have really wanted. Ever since Isom 1 came out and we had Norfolka revealed to us, people wanted a Norfolka series, and of course it took us a while, but that was revealed in the Rippaverse, and that was what really cemented the Rippaverse as this really massive event in my eyes, or at least this event that was giving the fans what they wanted and giving us a Norfolka limited series, is because everyone was like, when is that Norfolka book coming out? When is that Norfolka book coming out? And now we know it's happening in 25 with Eric writing, and of course, Ron Ellison doing the artwork on that. And who knows, maybe Slash is making an album, a Norfolka album. That's a distinct possibility. So we don't have anything really solid. Those are my theories, of course, either a movie or an album with Norfolka album where Slash is contributing to it. I don't have anything more than that, and we don't have really anything like any hard leaks where we see like Slash filming something, or we have like an audio leak where Slash is singing or doing guitar work and someone else is singing the lyrics that appear. The Norfolka lyrics that appear at the end of Isom number 1. We don't have something like a smoking gun like that. Excuse the pun. But we do just have this confirmation. I think the fact that Slash is a Rippaverse fan, he's willing to work with the Rippaverse in some capacity, it's just indicative that the Rippaverse is really permeating into the popular culture. Of course, it's going to take a while. It is definitely a niche of a niche, being an independent comic book company, and comics are already a niche. And of course, that industry's been in decline for a while. But with the lightning in a bottle event that was Isom number 1, and being able to maintain a reader base of around 10,000 dedicated readers that are engaging with not necessarily every book, but basically you've got probably between 10 and 20,000 people who are interested in the Rippaverse consistently, and they're distributing themselves amongst the books that prefer. Some people only want to get Yaira, some people are only in it for Isom, some people are only in it for Alpha Core. And of course, as more books come out, you're going to see that happen even more. But you've got a fan base that's growing. There's a lot of passion, and because of that passion, people are seeing that in working with the Rippaverse, and that includes Slash, which is really exciting to see. But we've got some cover reveals in light of Isom number 3 hitting that $500,000 milestone. We were promised some cover reveals. Of course, Zalin was on that list, but the Zalin pre-order collection launched before Isom 3 hit $500,000, so we got all the covers. Of course, we can pre-order any of the covers, and you can still do that. But we have the cover reveal for Yaira number 3, which of course we know is coming out this year, from a splash page at the end of Yaira number 2, drawn by Jack Herbert. And of course, Jack Herbert is the artist for this cover of Yaira number 3. This most likely is going to be the foil and embossed cover, although we don't have confirmation on that just yet. But this is an absolutely fantastic cover. And like I said in my Great War Separation number 1 review, Jack Herbert, who does the interior art for that book, or I should say for that limited series written by Chuck Dixon, had put out some of the best interior artwork that the Rippaverse has seen to date. So absolutely love to see Jack Herbert still working with the Rippaverse, giving us a really fantastic cover for Yaira number 3. And in light of Yaira number 2, all the stuff that went down, it was a 56-pager. There's a lot that went down. Yaira's in a very precarious position. Hopefully she can claw her way back to sanity in Yaira number 3 and beyond, and maybe she'll even make things up with Stefania, but who knows what that's going to be like. Of course, we will find out when Yaira number 3 hits later this year. But until then, we have the this lovely cover to hold the fans over, and I absolutely do love it. Like I said, fantastic cover. Jack Herbert does amazing artwork, and he's a great cover artist and interior artist. I think this cover is proof of that, and Alpha Core 1, cover B, is proof of that as well. But we've also got a cover reveal for Saoirse number 1. This is done by Vince L. Tabanas, And this is an absolutely fantastic cover. Of course, very sensual. Everybody loves Saoirse, so much so that she has an ongoing series now. Of course, Eric July is the writer of Saoirse, and Kanan White is the interior artist. And for him to not only be the art director of the Rippaverse, along with being a fantastic cover artist, he's done cover art for so many Rippaverse books. Basically, just about every one Kanan White has had a cover, and he always knocks it out of the park. And so for him to be attached as the artist of an ongoing series, and that series being Saoirse, is something I absolutely love to see. And the really interesting thing about this cover is that this is the same cocktail dress. Of course, it's very titillating, and we love to look at Saoirse and her lovely red cocktail dress. But the more interesting thing to me is that this is the same cocktail dress that she's seen wearing in the Ripazine short story, of course. So you see, I'm not sure if I can get everything in frame here, but you see it's the same cocktail dress. She's got the white fur shawl. She's got that, of course, very lovely opening that exposes just the right amount of midriff. And of course, you've got that slit at the side. Like I said, a very sensual cocktail dress. It was something for the occasion for sure. But the very interesting thing is that this, to me, is indicative that this 16-page plot line is going to show up in Saoirse #1. Now, is it going to be the beginning of it? I don't know. I think there's a decent chance that it ends up being the middle. So you see that we have this scene establishing her getting the job. And of course, this guy could be someone that she's introduced to and she's training a little bit beforehand. And then this starts, and then we have that. So this could be the middle of the story that Eric was intending to write with Saoirse #1. And we could be definitely having that at some point. Not having that at some point in the future, but when we get Saoirse #1 later this year, we'll have that. We'll have that knowledge, and of course, what is very traditional in the American comic book industry is for the cover to have absolutely nothing to do with the interior artwork. Alpha Core 1 cover B shows a fight between Lilian Renashi and Ingrid Valdez. That never happens in Alpha Core #1, but it was a really cool thing to see. Jack Herbert knocked that one out of the park. Fantastic cover, right? But with this, considering it is the same cocktail dress she's seen wearing in the Ripazine story, to me, this is a smoking gun. Absolute evidence that Saoirse's short story is going to be a part of her first issue. And that's going to be a really exciting thing to see because it has a cliffhanger ending, and you really just want more. It was a fantastically structured story. Of course, it was structured very similar to Salvage. Salvage's story in the first Ripazine. And between Saoirse and Salvage, I actually like Salvage more as a character. And I'm a bit disappointed that Salvage only got a full-length graphic novel instead of getting at least a limited series. I don't necessarily need him to have an ongoing series, but for us to get a Salvage limited series, I think is something that is definitely necessary because I just love his noir style. Of course, Bart Sears knocked it out of the park with the interior artwork for that, just really getting the aesthetic of Salvage just being this really cool noir investigator. And Saoirse definitely has that vibe as well, but I just like the way Salvage has that vibe. And we know that he's an X, that he has got that super hearing, and Will Conrad did a really good job at showing that off on his Dokkan card. But between Saoirse and Salvage, I definitely like Salvage more as a character, but that doesn't mean I don't love Saoirse. Of course, she's our sensual, deadly redhead. We absolutely love to see her getting an ongoing series, and we absolutely love to see this cover reveal. And I love it's this cover reveal, like I said, that red cocktail dress is just such a good hint at what the plot of Saoirse #1 is going to be. And that is one of the reasons why I love being a fan of the Rippaverse, because with even the little amount of lore and story that we have, they're really building off and referencing to it. It's making it feel very interconnected. And of course, with Saoirse, it's really paying homage to that first appearance of Saoirse in our second Ripazine, which I absolutely love to see. So hopefully it's just more than a homage, and we get a bigger explanation of who Mando Mansion is and why she can't go after Darren Fontano and all the things that were talked about in her short story. And I'm hoping that this is indicative of that rather than just Vince giving us a really nice pinup cover of Saoirse. But that is really all I have to say about all I have for this episode. hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of the Braxcast, and hopefully you guys keep tuning in to Braxcast every Saturday. And Braxcast Live is going to be 6 p.m. Eastern every Friday. That is the current schedule. That is subject to change, and I'm of course subject to have to go on hiatus from doing the lives, but hopefully, Lord willing, I'll be able to do the weekly Saturday episode, the recorded episodes every Saturday. Don't want to stop doing that anytime soon, but going to have a little bit of a lull in being able to put out the amount of content, and the lives are going to have to not be that. But for now, for the next couple of months, every Friday night, 6 p.m. Eastern, is when Braxcast Live is going to be airing. So hopefully you guys tune into that. If you enjoy the Braxcast, be part of the conversation. Of course, be part of this fandom, because there is so much going down. You are not going to want to miss it. So you're going to want to tune into the Braxcast to make sure that you know what's going down with the Rippaverse. But with that, don't have anything else for you guys this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Joker is out. Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.